So instead of removing blocks, removing people, and creating instability, we're intentionally stacking blocks up to build a robust, resilient tower. These qualities and attitudes in your team members create that foundation that supports sustainable growth and innovation. So the key takeaways with this: embracing new tech trends must be matched by ensuring your organization is full of people who default to embracing change instead of pushing back on it. Number 2, leadership have to unanimously promote and advocate for a culture of growth and learning. We do not tolerate people that do not want to get on the bus. And lastly, collaboration. We need to encourage teamwork and innovation across the organization. Right? Can you imagine a workplace where everybody is in the right seat, on the right bus, working together like a well-oiled machine? Each person's strengths complementing those of others, each challenge faced with collective confidence, and each success celebrated as a shared victory. This isn't just about putting bums on seats. It's not just about filling roles. It's about creating an environment where every single person is set for success. By stacking our people with the same care and strategy that we apply to our daily habits, we can transform our organizations into future-fit powerhouses. Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of Future Fit with Friska. I'm your host, Friska Wiria, and today we're going to be diving into one of my favorite metaphors, reverse Jenga. We're going to explore how intentional people stacking can build resilient and adaptable teams that help you ride the waves of change instead of being dumped by them. Plus, we're going to look at some cautionary tales of where companies got it oh so wrong by focusing too much on the tech stack and not enough on the people stack. In the game of Jenga, you pull out your blocks one by one and you make the tower increasingly unstable until it collapses. Now, when we think about reverse Jenga, on the other hand, it's about intentionally adding the right blocks to build a stronger, more stable tower. And when you apply this to organizations, this means strategically stacking your team with the right qualities, the right attitudes to create a foundation of resilience and adaptability. So instead of removing blocks, removing people, and creating instability, we're intentionally stacking blocks up to build a robust, resilient tower. These qualities and attitudes in your team members create that foundation that supports sustainable growth and innovation. So, why is people stacking so important? In the rush to adopt the latest technologies, many companies make the mistake of neglecting their people. They invest heavily in new systems, new tools, but forget it's ultimately the people that drive success. Let's talk about a real-life example, right? Microsoft. Everybody's heard of them, but a decade or two ago, they were bordering on irrelevance. So Microsoft's transformation started in earnest when CEO Satya Nadella took the helm in 2014. He shifted Microsoft's focus from its traditional software products to cloud computing and AI. So this meant a lot of money, significant investments in Azure and the development of AI capabilities. But he matched this investment with diversity because he realized the same thinking, the same leaders, the same mindsets that got them to where they were today are not going to get them to where they're going to be tomorrow. So he talked about the diversity transformation, the people transformation, at every chance he had. Countless quarterly results, town halls, product launches, and media interviews. Now, not only did he talk about it, but his actions matched his words. There was a gradual exodus of the old guard and the old thinking at Microsoft, and in came a new energy, new experiences, and new mindsets. So he prioritized a big cultural shift within the organization, and he emphasized collaboration, learning, a growth mindset. He encouraged employees to embrace new technologies and take risks without the fear of failure. People were rewarded, not for just trying something new, not just when it worked, but doing something different. And so this is key if you want to cultivate innovation within your organization. It sounds really common sense, but what I've learned is common sense is not common. The number of reward and recognition systems that are out of whack with this, it's just countless. So long story short, what's been the results? By 2020, Azure accounted for 19% of Microsoft revenue, up from just 3%. And in 2015, Microsoft's market cap was significant, $300 billion. So this is testament to the power of their transformation strategy. So the key takeaways with this: embracing new tech trends must be matched by ensuring your organization is full of people who default to embracing change instead of pushing back on it. Number 2, leadership have to unanimously promote and advocate for a culture of growth and learning. We do not tolerate people that do not want to get on the bus. And lastly, collaboration. We need to encourage teamwork and innovation across the organization. Now let's contrast this with another well-known company that didn't transform, Nokia in Finland, right? They were once a leader in mobile phone manufacturing, but they failed to transition successfully to the smartphone market. Despite having the very first smartphone prototype in 1996, they underestimated the power of software and app ecosystems. I remember back when I was about 14, I had the sliding Nokia banana phone, and it was at the time the most coveted phone in its day. And now it's Nokia Who. So Nokia's leadership was slow to recognize the shift towards smartphones and continued to focus on its traditional mobile phone business. So this lack of future foresight, this lack of innovation, it really led to its downfall. Tradition's great. It has its place, but it can also be a straitjacket. It must be integrated with transformation. And this is what I talk about in my second book, which will be out in December this year. So the results for Nokia's lack of innovation is pretty bleak, right? In 2017, they had half the global mobile phone market, right? 50%. And just a few short years later, in 2013, it had dwindled to 3%. So definitely not good news for them. So the key takeaways there is that you really need to innovate. It really is innovate and adapt, otherwise face obsolescence. Number 2, leaders need to have that strategic vision, and they need to really understand and leverage emerging trends. Last but not least, you have to stay close to your customer. People were wanting different things for their phones, and they didn't match what the customer wanted. So you can see here the contrasting fortunes of Microsoft and Nokia. While Microsoft successfully navigated industry shifts and emerged stronger, Nokia's reluctance to embrace change led to its decline and eventually death. So these lessons underscore the importance of building a future-fit organization. You cannot get future-fit without intentionally and selectively curating who the people are within them. Now I'm going to move to another well-known example, right? Kodak. It's been an MBA case study for decades, and I'm not going to hash on it. But what you maybe don't realize is that the downfall of Kodak wasn't a technology-related one at all. It was a failure to look forward, to scenario plan, to capture the big long-term win in exchange for a short-term dip. So what happened was they were short-sighted. The leaders were clinging to the very high margins in a dying category, and they preferred that instead of dominating a new category, which was digital cameras, because there were very low margins in the beginning, right? You can bet that they wish they took the other option now. Don't want to be like Kodak? I have the answer. You need to diversify your people stack. You need to empower people to speak their mind, to present their case, give high potentials a direct line to the leadership team, be open to hearing opposing viewpoints, and view challenge as a really great opportunity to stress test new ideas. So you can start to think about how you can intentionally do what I call people stacking, right? It's something I've coined after reading James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, and he talks about habit stacking. Right? We all have very strong habitual connections that we take for granted every single day. Our brains are very efficient at remembering to brush your teeth, take a shower, brew your morning cup of coffee, open the blinds. So in his book, he says we can take advantage of these strong connections to start to build new positive habits. So imagine if we stacked our people the same way, intentionally aligning each individual, the right roles, the right responsibilities, and teammates to create a powerful, cohesive unit. Just like habit stacking builds upon existing behaviors to create new productive routines, intentional people stacking would build upon existing strengths and relationships within the team. This would mean recognizing the unique qualities, skills, and motivations of each person and strategically placing them where they can thrive best. It's about being super deliberate in how we assemble our teams to foster innovation, resilience, and adaptability. Right? Can you imagine a workplace where everybody is in the right seat, on the right bus, working together like a well-oiled machine? Each person's strengths complementing those of others, each challenge faced with collective confidence, and each success celebrated as a shared victory. This isn't just about putting bums on seats. It's not just about filling roles. It's about creating an environment where every single person is set for success. By stacking our people with the same care and strategy that we apply to our daily habits, we can transform our organizations into future-fit powerhouses. We can create a culture that doesn't just survive change, but it masters it, with every single individual actively driving it forward. So this is the essence of building a future-fit organization, one that's prepared to face the challenges of tomorrow, today. Are you leading change but constantly running into a brick wall of resistance? Maybe you've huffed and puffed, yet still not blown the house down. You are not alone. Resistance to change is one of the biggest roadblocks that leaders face, but it doesn't have to be. Imagine turning that resistance into momentum which drives you forward. That's exactly what my free 5-part mini course will help you do. It's called Shifting Resistance into Resilience, and in just 5 lessons, I'll walk you through proven strategies to break down those walls. You'll learn how to identify the root causes of resistance, engage your key stakeholders, yes, even the stubborn and loud ones, and build a culture that doesn't fatigue with change. It actually feasts on it. Sound good? All you need to do is click the link to get started, and the first lesson will be in your inbox. Don't let resistance render you powerless. Turn it into resilience that will push you forward. So I'm now going to talk about the common archetypes. And as we go through these 4 archetypes, remember that it's not about eliminating any one type of person. It's about, like I said, people stacking. It's about finding that balance and composition that aligns with your strategy. So the first archetype most commonly found in organizations is the nostalgia seekers. So these are people who are secretly waiting for all office engagement to get back to the pre-COVID way, which is in real life, right? They love things in person. They're usually Generation X or baby boomers, and they grew up in a digital environment. So their primary focus is on the past. And this actually limits any opportunities that they can see for today or to the future. So no disrespect to the people listening, but I come from a very male-dominated background, mining, oil and gas, technology, engineering, where most of the board members and the senior leadership team fell into this bucket, right? Male, pale, and stale. They kept on wanting to try strategies that worked for them in their glory days. That were 30 to 40 years ago. The point I want to make here is that if we're always reminiscing about the good old days, how can we ever begin to start creating the even greater days that are yet to come? Number 2 are the reflexive skeptics. So these are the but people, right? Their reflexive reaction to anything new, innovative, growth, transformative is to say but, right? They almost don't think about it. This is a knee-jerk reaction, right? But our compliance department won't allow this, but our customers want Y, but we always do X, right? They're rarely able to see possibilities and opportunities. And instead, all they see are obstacles and constraints. So their focus is also on the past, not the future. And they have a glass half empty mindset. They have the organizational knowledge and the experience, but they don't have the creativity or the imagination to vision board a new way of operating. Now, think of those people in your organization who look like they're completely over it. They look like they've pushed and still not blown the house down. They're very, very frustrated. But in the past, they were enthusiastic. Now, I call these people the frustrated enthusiasts. So these are type 3. They're driven to innovate. They have great intentions, but they don't have the digital competence and capability And they're certainly not empowered to drive innovation. When I say empowered, this means executive sponsorship, this means budget, this means authority, this means control over strategy and its execution. They're usually bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, really excited, really enthusiastic and hopeful, only to find themselves frustrated and disengaged a year later. Why do you think that is? Well, they don't progress at the pace they desire, if at all. So these people have a future focus, they are looking forward, but they are disempowered. Now, I see this a lot in young graduates. They're very excited, they're very energetic, and they become disenfranchised with all the red tape, bureaucracy, and politics associated with making change happen, especially if they're working in a large global organization. Last but not least, we have the holy grail change makers. Now, these are the people that are blessed with it all. They have the technical smarts, whether it's digital savvy, whether it's environmental, whether it's economical, scientific, or something else altogether, and they are organizationally set up for success. This means they have an executive sponsor, they've got money, there's actually a budget, they have a mandate to innovate, and they have strong relationships throughout the business, which they've built. So they're pretty constructive, they do their research, they have a clearly documented strategy, and shock horror, the most important thing is they have a budget to actually execute the darn thing. So they are ready, so ready to drive change in a big way, and as a result, step change and advance their career as a byproduct. So regardless of which archetypes are in your business, which archetype you may be, how do you get started with intentional people stacking? Well, there are some key steps to follow. First, identify what you're looking for. What are those key qualities? So when I say qualities, I mean key traits, not certifications, right? We don't need any more certifications. So what are they? What are those qualities and attitudes that are essential for your team and your organization's success? These traits may include adaptability, collaboration, curiosity, resilience. So look for these traits when hiring new team members and nurture them in your existing staff through development programs. So when I was heading up the change function at a big gold miner, two key qualities were lacking: openness to change and assuming positive intent. When these qualities were lacking, this put a massive handbrake on any innovation that could be applied across the organization. We spent a lot of time and energy putting out internal fires, massaging egos, when really it could have been spent on making a bigger impact to the people that work there. So Netflix comes to mind as an organization that did this really, really well. So they revolutionized HR and they focused on trust and candor. This approach to talent management, right, hiring fully formed adults, encouraging informal performance reviews, not once a year, but regularly, and giving generous severance to those that no longer fit, right, they were out of there really fast. It created a strong, potent culture that drew more and more people in that were made of the stuff that they needed to successfully transform. So have a think about how you're currently recruiting your people. Is it based on aptitude or attitude? Are you over-indexing on those qualities that have been intentionally held up as desirable in the conventional world? Or do you have a good mix? The second point is to nurture attitudes. So provide ongoing training and support to develop these qualities, right? People are not born innovative. People are not born adaptable. People are not born with great collaboration skills. So how do you amplify those attitudes that are critical to your organization's success? People need to be collaborating. The more diversity of thought, experience, skills, and opinions, the more well-rounded solutions tend to be. So this means creating opportunities for different members of the team to work together and socialize across functions and levels. So this can be done through many different formats. You could start cross-functional projects. You could do some team building activities. There could be introducing open communication channels or even designated social happy hours, right? Collaboration not only drives innovation, but it builds a sense of unity and shared purpose. Now, Google. Everybody's heard of this company. sounds bleedingly obvious, but they actually had to launch an entire project, Project Oxygen, to identify that soft skills, such as being a good coach and a communicator, are more critical than tech skills. I know, eye roll. This insight led to a revamped approach in their people management, and this drove high performance and satisfaction, and it's paid off, right? I've met quite a lot of Googlers from the US, from Australia, from Singapore, from Indonesia, and across the board, they are so happy to work there. They love the culture, so it's worked. The third point is to foster openness. So encourage a culture where change is embraced and dicey topics are discussed with open doors. Last but not least is fostering an environment of openness to change. So this starts with leadership. They have to role model the behavior they want to see. They have to demonstrate flexibility and a willingness to learn. So encouraging a culture where feedback is valued and change is seen as an opportunity rather than threat, it takes commitment. It takes dedication. It takes follow through, right? It really is a triangle. Change, innovation, and failure. They all go together. You cannot have one or two without the other. So seek out failure, celebrate it, acknowledge it, but most importantly, learn from it. So there's a company that I really admire. It's called Blind Feed HQ. It's based in Berlin, and they have something called F Up Fridays. And literally every single Friday, the entire team gets together. They either cook together or go out to dinner, and they take it in turns to celebrate their F-ups. They celebrate their failures, right? But it's not like a doom and gloom negative thing. They acknowledge their failures, but most importantly, they share what they learned from it, how they improved, and what they've done differently, right? This is very important if we want to do this. It needs to be ongoing, not a one and done approach. So, in conclusion, building a future fit organization starts with the people. The tool is only as powerful as the people who will ultimately be using it. By focusing on intentional people stacking, you can create a solid foundation of resilience and adaptability. I wanted to remind everybody as well that, seeking feedback, getting people to share their learnings, etc., it's often very difficult if you come from a culture that's quite conservative, risk-averse, and definitely not tolerant of failure and risks. So especially in multicultural organizations. So I want to share this example. When I was a GM at a big gold mining company, I'd gone to visit one of our sites, and that was based in Indonesia, and the GM was a Canadian. And he was telling me how frustrated he was because he had all his leadership team involved in creating this new vision, the 2050 vision. And he wanted to normalize giving feedback. And because it was their site, he wanted them to have skin in the game. So at a team meeting, he's like, great, this is our vision now. And he asked everybody in his team to contribute ideas on how to make the site better. Literally no one said anything. After a few minutes of shuffling of silence, still no one said anything. And he was telling me about this situation, and this was when I reminded him that in some cultures, giving feedback, suggestions for improvement is very uncomfortable, and it seems rude actually because of the high power distance. And he said to me, how do I go about it? I said, well, you can't surprise them with something like that. And if they're uncomfortable voicing their opinions and concerns in real time live with everybody in the room, you need to introduce asynchronous communication channels. It could be a unanimous box where you drop in your suggestions. It could be a survey, anything else. The point is you can't just spring this new request on people. So if this is you, if this resonates with you, just remember that getting people to verbalize their real thoughts, authenticity, suggestions for improvement is not going to happen with one request. You need to keep going, and you need to provide multiple channels. So what happened with that particular situation is that I gave him some advice that you can do this and you can gamify it. So he gave his team plenty of warning next time. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't that all of them suddenly started voicing their concerns, but it took about 6 to 9 months. But after 9 months, they were very comfortable voicing their opinions. So this is a reminder, like change, like anything that's worth having in life, doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen fast. It happens with commitment, dedication, and consistency. So if you want to build a future fit organization and you're choosing to start today, remember you're not going to get there tomorrow, but you will get there. Thank you again for joining me on yet another episode of Future Fit with Friska. Keep learning, keep growing, keep unlearning too. And remember, the past shows what you've done and the future will show what you learned.